Hello everyone. Please tell me if this microphone does stop working. Hi everyone, so I'm going to take you through the sexy topic of FBA quantity limits. But just before that, quick intro to myself. So my name is Nish. I work at Ulsan. So we're right at the back as well. We've got a stand. We've got a whole host of people from Ulsan here as well today. So we are a UK-based aggregator. So what that means is we go and buy e-commerce businesses, take them in-house, and then scale them up. And the reason we're able to scale them up is because we've got our own in-house teams, fantastic team of people from supply chain, we've got our own brand management team, advertising team, creative team. And so a lot of them have run their own businesses before, on Amazon and off Amazon as well. And then myself, I work on the investment team. So if you're looking to sell your business or you're just looking to find out about what the value of your business is, it'll be someone from my team that you'll be speaking to. And then prior to Awesome, I worked at Amazon, so I was there for 4.5 years, and I worked across two different teams across the EU business. So first, Seller Football Prime. I was part of the team that set up Seller Football Prime in the UK in 2017, and then I moved to the FBA team in 2020, and I was part of the team that set up quantity restrictions, quantity limits, which I'm sure will be lots before. And just before I left in 2021, I set up the FBA heavy and bulky team. So that's basically an FBA solution for things like fridges and washing machines, which didn't exist before. That was from the UK. So enough about me. Talking about FBA quantity limits. So I think most people here know what FBA is. A lot of you probably sell on FBA, but for those of you that don't know what it is, FBA is when you sell your items on Amazon, you get a Prime badge, but you send your items to an Amazon warehouse. Amazon stores them for you, and then when somebody order comes in, Amazon will pick, pack, and deliver the item for you. You never see the item after you send it to you. And before 2020, Amazon allowed you to send generally as many units as you wanted of any product to store in their warehouses. In 2020, that changed because, mainly because of COVID, supply decreased, the demand increased for products. We'll go into that a bit later. But since 2020, you haven't been able to send in however many items you want to Amazon. And that's had knock-on effects for all sellers worldwide on inventory management. So this isn't as much of an issue as it was, I guess, towards the end of last year, 2020. Throughout 2020, 2021, every seller I spoke with, whether I was working at Amazon or Ulsan, said that this was an issue. Now it's less of an issue because Amazon sort of caught up a little bit, built more warehouses, but these things are here to stay, right? And so definitely around times, peak season, Prime Day, these sort of times, I expect this to, limits to tighten slightly again, probably not to the same extent that we saw before, but I expect them to tighten again. And I'm just going to take you through the timeline of what's happened, what the impact on businesses has been, and then some solutions what I think you guys can do and what we've done about that. So high level timeline of what's happened. So as I said, before 2020, you could send as many items as you wanted, as many units as you wanted of any product. Amazon actually encouraged it. In fact, they actually called sellers and asked them to do it. So I'm sure a lot of sellers here probably had calls from Amazon account managers. And then in 2020, that changed. So it changed to a SKU level. So every single SKU that you sold on FBA had a limit. And that was understandably very frustrating for a lot of sellers because if you're about to launch a new product, that was really tightly monitored. And you had to start selling for a while before you could send high numbers of products in. So that was pretty annoying, and so they changed it in H121, beginning of last year, to an account level. So what that meant was you didn't have SKU level limits across your account. You had a limit of say 2,000, and then you could send as many variations of your products as you wanted. So you could send 2,000 units of one SKU if you like to, then you wouldn't have space to sell any others. And then in May of last year, it tightened quite badly. A lot of sellers worldwide across all marketplaces felt this. And then Amazon started changing the weekly restock limits, restock limits weekly, sometimes even multiple times within a week, which frustrated a lot of sellers, us included. And then point 4 there, the IPI threshold increased to 500. It's actually decreased now to 400. For those of you who don't know what IPI is, I mean, this stands for Inventory Performance Index. It measures how efficiently you manage your inventory in an Amazon Fulfillment Center. It's slightly different from restock limits. Restock limits, they determine the number of units of a product you can send in to Amazon FC. The IPI score determines your storage volume, so the overall volume of products, overall volume, across all your products that you can actually store in FC. So they're slightly different from each other, and a lot of sellers get confused between the two, partly because Amazon don't explain it very well. So that's one for you to remember. In this presentation, we're going to go through restock limits. If you've got any questions about IPI, just feel free to ask after. And then point 5 there, as I mentioned already, limits have been increasing since last year. But I expect peak season, Prime Day, Christmas, those type of things, those come down again. So now the impact of the changes. So there's like three main things here, and I'm sure a lot of you will have felt these. So the first one is growth constraints. So what we were seeing, especially last year around May, June time, was the restock limits decreased by up to 2/3. So if you've got 2,000, you've got a 2,000 limit, you're sending 2,000 items in, you're always replenishing the stock. Suddenly, from a Sunday to a Monday, that dropped to sort of 600, 700, and then you're left with over 1,000 units. You don't know what to do with. You need to sell those before you can send more in, so you're left with trying to figure out what to do with those. So that happened to us quite a lot, and a lot of sellers as well. Second thing was unable to inbound sufficient weeks of cover. So when we were on Amazon, we used to advise people to send in 4 to 6 weeks of cover on any of your products. So if you're taking account for increases in demand and things like that, that was not possible with the significant changes in the restock limits last year. Third thing was the variance between the countries. So actually, this wasn't on account level across all your marketplaces. If you sold across all the EU marketplaces and the US, for example, that's at least six different restock limits that you had to keep track of every single week. So understandably, sellers were frustrated. Second issue was supply chain complexity. So a lot of sellers before used to inbound items straight from their manufacturer, often in China, straight to an Amazon fulfillment center, never saw the products, and it was super easy to do, didn't have to store it anywhere. But that changed. And then there was unpredictability, I mentioned before. FBA delivery slots. Now this was an issue as well, because especially for palletized shipments, it was wait times across Europe, at least 4 to 6 weeks often, to get a slot. So your stock might actually be on its way, it might be even at the dock, but you're waiting 4 to 6 weeks for Amazon to give you a slot to validate. And then lastly, margin pressure. So as you can imagine, with all the restock limits decreasing, sellers were left with lots of products that they needed to get rid of. And so a lot of sellers would either reduce their prices or increase advertising spend to get rid of all these products. And that's why advertising spend improved really last year. And yeah, removal of these measures. So why did Amazon make these changes? So the main reason is that there was such growth over COVID. Across the US and UK marketplaces, e-commerce grew by over 40%. That's just US and UK. That doesn't even account for Germany, which is actually the biggest marketplace in the EU. And then you can see from Amazon's 2020 annual report, they don't actually split out what the revenue for marketplace is, but you can sort of estimate it. So the total revenue was around 400 billion, of which marketplace was around 120, and that's been growing year on year. Marketplace makes more revenue and profit than Amazon retail does, and it has done for the last few years. And then the independent business sales grew 50% as well. Amazon capacity constraints. So this is the key one. A lot of people don't realise that the things that go into determining what the restock limit is, they're the sort of things that a lot of people know that past sales, future sales, sales velocity, things like that, inventory levels. But a key one is how much space Amazon actually have. And so, especially if you're doing pan-EU, before Brexit, if you're doing pan-EU, Amazon would take the items that you send to them, move them all around their warehouses across EU as well, and then so you don't actually know which warehouse your items are in. If Amazon have capacity constraints in any one of their warehouses, that's going to start to hit your restock limit. And so it's totally random. It's how the algorithm works internally, but that was affecting a lot of people, which is why it used to go up and down quite a lot. So you have 1 week where your restock limit, especially when the SKU level was super low, and the next week it would go up by at least 50%, and then it could go down again the next week. And then finally, change of strategy for Amazon. So when I started working at Amazon, I was there 2017, that's when I started, most of the sellers on Amazon were resellers. So there were people who were buying products, often from China, sometimes from the EU as well. They were brand owners and they were reselling them on Amazon. They were the biggest sellers. They would make the most revenue for Amazon, most profit for Amazon as well. Over time, from 2017 through, I noticed it throughout until 2020, but this really accelerated in 2020 with the advent of COVID, was the emergence of brands. And Amazon really pushed this as well. They pushed brand registry, they pushed people to sign up for brands, register their brands, trademarks, get that done. And so, there's been a customer shift because of that as well. Partly driven by Amazon, there's probably also customers that have been driving this as well. They don't go on Amazon to buy junk necessarily anymore, which was the case maybe 8 to 10 years ago. Now it's about looking for specific brands. And I think that shift is happening. Like that's going to continue to happen. There aren't that many household name brands on Amazon right now. A big one's Anchor. But I think there'll be a lot of Amazon brands that started on Amazon that become household names in the next few years. That's probably going to be accelerated by aggregators like us as well, investing in these brands. And so, yeah, customer behavior changed. No longer the everything store, which is what Amazon used to call themselves. Amazon did want to sell everything, but they didn't want everything to be an FBA. They wanted the brand, the biggest brand with the best items to be an FBA, and all the other tail selection, they wanted you to sell MFN, which is if you're selling yourself, or SFP, self prime, which I'll come on to. So now the key part, what are some of the solutions that you can take? So I think there's two ways of looking at this, right? So one is how can you manage limits, and two is what can you do to try and increase your limits. As I said, a lot of you right now will probably be seeing increased limits and might not seem like an issue to you, but I think it's important that you know these now so that when limits do, I think they will, later this year start to tighten, that you're aware of these. So the first thing on managing how to manage your limits, so use 3PLs. So it used to be, as I said, that you'd send your inventory straight from manufacturers to an Amazon FC, you wouldn't see the items. Now you need to work with 3PLs, and these are third-party logistics providers. They're warehouses that are run by people for several different sellers. This industry has grown massively over the last year. There are companies like Habu Fulfillment, ShipBob, that raise millions in Series A, Series Bs just to do this. So if you're not using a 3PL already, make sure that you Google it, come chat to me after, you need to use 3PLs. So the whole point of this is you can now replace what you're doing before, sending thousands of units in one go, palletized shipment straight to Amazon, but send them straight to a 3PL. And then drip feed from the 3PL into the Amazon FCs, depending on what your reselling is saying. That's the major shift in strategy for sellers. Second thing, monitor your limits. So we were doing it across our brands several times a week. We noticed over time that Amazon started to change their limits once a week, often on a Sunday or a Monday. Most of you will probably send one brand, so we have one brand. So just make sure that you set yourself a reminder every Sunday or Monday, check what your new restock limit is. And especially if it's a time when you're approaching peak season, make sure you keep track of this. If your restock limit's gone up, send some stuff in from your 3PL if they're high selling products. You don't know what's going to happen from you. Third thing is to focus on your best sellers. So FBA, Amazon have always said this, but haven't really shown it in their actions. The FBA should be for your best sellers, your fastest moving products, the ones that are going to go into FBA, into an FC and be sold pretty much instantly within the next couple of weeks. If you've got tail selection, things that low units that take a while to sell, you all know what they are. Keep them in MFN or put them in SFP. Don't send them to FBA because you're just going to be stuck with those when your best sellers run out, and then if your restock limit drops, then you're going to be faced with the tough decision. Right? What do you do with the items that aren't selling? Moving on to the second thing, how can you increase your limits? So through the different brands that we've been running for a while now, there are a few things that came up that seem to work. So the first one, raise cases of seller support. I'm sure no one here loves seller support, but it's a low effort thing to do. So if you really feel like your restock has dropped a lot, and you're maybe already you've sent items in, so you've got items there, and you feel like they're going to increase in velocity, try it. Do the case, it might come to nothing, but it's worth doing. We've had some cases where they're happy with it. Second thing is creating removal rules. Now this is going to hit your margin because it costs to remove items from Amazon FC. But the advantage of creating removal rules is that as soon as you click on Seller Central and you submit your removal order, straight away, even before the units have left the FC, your restock limit goes up. So Amazon have taken into account that these are gone. So that gives you the chance straight away to create a new shipment and send it in to Amazon FC. But be careful about that. Make sure you know how much it's going to affect your margins. It's not a long-term solution. It should be the last solution. And then the third thing, and this is the thing that seems to work the most, from what we've seen, is increasing the sales velocity. So the run rate. What we've noticed is as the sales of your product increases more and more, your restock limit for that particular product is going to increase. And as we're now at an account level, the overall account level, restock limit will increase as well. And there are some ways to do that, obviously reduce price, spend in advertising, discounts, deals. Those are some of the things that you can try. And then finally, seller fulfill prime. So for people who don't know what seller fulfill prime is, this is from a customer's point of view, should in theory be very similar to FBA. So you get the prime promise on your products, but when a customer orders a product, you fulfill it. You pick, pack, and deliver it, or your 3PL if you work with a 3PL. So SAP is something that we have used. As I said, I worked at Amazon on the program before, and just a few points here on how SAP can help. Just really quickly before I go on to that, on the right there, you can see from a customer's point of view what the detail page looks like. So the one on the left, it says ships from sort of Amazon. That's Amazon retail. This is Amazon bought the products themselves. They keep it on their balance sheet. You'll find the products directly from them. The one in the middle is FBA. It's sold by a seller and fulfilled by Amazon. So it's coming from a seller. The one on the right is SAP. So it's got a Prime badge, but it says it's ships from and sold by a particular seller. And then the fourth version, which I didn't have space for to put down, is MFN, when you're fulfilling it yourself. It will be the same as the far right one, just no Prime badge, and it will have a longer delivery price. So that's the advantage of it. SAP is that you get, in theory, similar delivery promise to FBA, Prime badge, but you have control of it. So some reasons why SAP can help. So the most obvious one is restock limits don't apply, right? Because you're not sending any items in. You keep all of your stock in one place. You don't need to think about it. What I would advise is, as I mentioned before, SAP isn't the solution for everything. There is a definite advantage in using FBA. We'll come on to it in a second. FBA does have a faster delivery price overall versus SAP, so that will increase your conversion. So what you want to do is split your stock. So the fast-moving items send it to FBA. And if you want to keep your products on Prime, keep the conversion rate up, keep them in SAP. So, other FBA products that apply, inbounding, removals, things like that. That's if you're doing SAP. Second is, I've already mentioned this, you have the Prime badge. One of the key selling points for FBA is that you get Prime, right? And you get that with SAP as well. Versus FBM or MFN, whatever you want to call it, you don't get the Prime badge. So you get most of the benefits of FBA there. Third one, you keep all your inventory in one place. So you can sell on the other channels. Amazon have introduced something called they've had it for a while now, but they're really marketing it now, something called MCF, which is multi-channel fulfillment, which is you can do FBA and still sell on other channels. But if you want to keep all your inventory in one place and have full control over it, or you've got your own warehouse maybe, SAP is the best way to go. And yeah, you also get easier pricing negotiation carriers. So a lot of you, if you're not just doing FBA and you're selling on other channels, you do MFN as well, you'll annually have a certain number of packages that you need to send through your carrier. And if you use multiple carriers, maybe you've got 10,000 for Royal Mail, 5,000 for DPD. By sending stuff into FBA, you're taking your packages out of that. That would normally go to that carrier and sticking them with Amazon. So your pricing is going to go up. So one thing for you to be aware of if you're doing FBA, but by doing SAP, you're keeping your pricing low on your off Amazon. And then lastly, I just wanted to go through some of the SAP changes that have happened over the last So we talked about changes that have happened on FBA with restock limits. S&P itself has been through changes over the last. That was really good, was it? S&P itself has gone through changes over the last year, and that's really because of speed. So we'll quickly go through what the changes are, and then I'll explain why. So the changes, it used to be that you worked Monday to Friday as a seller, and your cut-off time, from a customer-facing point of view, was 1 p.m. every day. And cut-off time means if a customer orders a product before that time, you need to pick and pack and have that package ready to give to a carrier the same day. If they order after 1 p.m. from the customer's point of view, it would be collected from you the next day. So just very quickly, customer-facing cut-off time used to be 1 p.m. Seller-facing was 2 p.m. We allow that 1 hour space in between, so if the customer ordered at like 12:59, then you would still have, it took time for the order to come through, you can still get the packet on time. That's now changed from 1 p.m/3 p.m. to 2 p.m/4 p.m. So that it's been moved back by 2 hours. And that's really because, I'll come on to why, because of speed, but that basically means that you now need to work slightly longer during the day, or the 3PL that you work with needs to work slightly longer during the day to fulfill basically what you would have done before with S&P. And that's not only, you can move them later down into the day as well if you want to, before you can. That's the first thing. The second thing is managing weekend collections. So it used to be Monday to Friday, you have a weekend off, but now Amazon are forcing you to work on a Saturday or Sunday or both as well, which is an idea. There are some other minor changes as well, but I want to go on to the reason for why. So the reason is because of speed. So think of the previous example. So if you ordered something from S&P, from an S&P seller, on a Friday after the cutoff, so let's say you ordered at 4 p.m. on a Friday, under the old system, that would be collected from the seller on a Monday, delivered to you earliest on Tuesday, potentially on a Wednesday, and there used to be something called S&P Small and Light, which had a 2-day promise, and that could be delivered on a Thursday. So it's potentially a 5 or 6 day promise for a prime product, which sort of defeats what prime is. So that's why Amazon have changed it. So now if you order that same product at the same time, that's going to be collected from the seller on a weekend and delivered either on Monday or Tuesday. If it's FBA, it will be delivered probably at the weekend. So there is still a difference between FBA and S&P, but Amazon have tried to protect the prime promise by making these changes to S&P. And yeah, that was pretty much everything I was going to go through. If you have any questions, please go ahead.
Another one. First, yeah, it's a really interesting talk. Really enjoyed it. The one thing that I'm interested in from an SFP perspective is if you're using a 3PL or your own warehouse, how does Amazon guarantee that you can actually make that delivery or get it to the customer within the prime promise? Yeah. What do they do to the seller to do that?
Yeah. So the question was, if you're on SFP and you're using your own carrier, how does Amazon guarantee that that carrier is going to send everything on time, or guarantee that you're going to send everything on time? So Amazon look after two things. So one is on the seller side, they want to check that you're picking and packing your items and giving it to the carrier on time every day. And then on the carrier side, they restrict the number of carriers you can use. So they only let you use partner carriers. So in the UK, that's Royal Mail, DPD, Hermes, those are the ones for now. So you can't use any carrier you want to, especially not Yodel. Amazon hate Yodel because they're the worst carrier. So there are only a few carriers you can use, and because Amazon have a partnership with the carrier, they have full oversight over all the deliveries that are being done. And every week internally, there are metrics that they look at, and if the carrier is going below all those metrics, and they're really high metrics by the way, like over 95% delivery on time, they'll bring up the carrier. Potentially, not that it's happened, but they could cancel the contract with the carrier, things like that.
So then if the merchant isn't ready to pass the parcel on to the carrier, let's say they missed the 4 p.m. deadline, does the seller get penalized for that, not the carrier?
In theory, no. Wait, sorry. So if it's the seller's fault, you're saying? Definitely. Are you saying it's the seller's fault?
No, I'm asking, does Amazon punish the carrier or the seller?
So in theory, Amazon should be able to see if it's the seller's fault or the carrier's fault. In practice, though, Amazon don't have oversight on when the the seller's actually handing it over to the carrier. All they know is when the label was printed. So sometimes there are cases when the seller's printed out the labels every one time, carriers come along, doesn't have space in their truck, and it doesn't take it, and then obviously not the seller's fault, but then the seller gets penalised because Amazon say, well, you know, you printed out time, whatever, the carrier hasn't delivered it. It looks like you clearly didn't give it to the carrier as well. So in those cases, yeah, that's a real tough one to deal with, and you've got to go through seller support. That's one of the issues with SFB. It's just there's no scans that happen every single time, and that's purely a speed thing as well. If the carrier's standing there scanning every single item, it's going to take ages, and a lot of carriers just don't do it.
Okay, we've got time for one more question. If anyone has a question, so we are standing between you and your lunch. Thank you again. Thank you.